take us. There are more than 100 indigenous languages spoken right here in California, but a lot of them are facing extinction. Now, these languages aren't used much anymore, and even those that are being used often aren't being taught to the next generations. It's like that skill you once had when you were a kid, but because you haven't used it in years, you don't know how to use it anymore. Well, the Serrano Tribe is native to the San Bernardino Mountains and other parts of Southern California. Its language was at one point only fluently spoken by a single woman. But some passionate folks in Riverside County have fought to preserve this language, and it's still being taught today. Ernest Siva is one of the few remaining historians of the Serrano language. He founded the Dorothy Ramone Learning Center, which aims to preserve and share the indigenous language traditions of Southern California. Hi, Ernest.
Hello.
Also joining us is his student, Mark Araujo-Levinson. He is a preservation specialist with the Morongo Cultural Heritage Department and a senior at Cal State San Bernardino. Mark, welcome to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
Ernest, I want to start with you. You heard the Serrano language as a young boy growing up on the Morongo Reservation in Riverside County. It was your aunt, Dorothy Ramone, who was actually the last fluent speaker of the language. Tell us a little bit about her.
Well, it was up to her to do something drastic about saving the language since it was disappearing. And earlier, of course, her two sisters were the ones main speakers, and well, the whole family, and that was the picture at that time.
When did you become aware that the language was beginning to fade away, and why did you decide to try and preserve it?
Well, very early I realized. In fact, the whole family would joke about it. You know, they knew that it was slipping away because others in the tribe weren't speaking. There were a few, and the elders, and so the picture was quite clear. And I became serious about it toward the end. But when I did realize that, I did all I could, grabbing onto all different sources outside of our speakers, you know, in other words, scholarly works and that sort of thing.
You opened the Dorothy Ramone Learning Center in your aunt's honor and name. It's where you and Mark met. How has the center been a hub for the preservation of all languages and other indigenous traditions?
We do have programs in art and music and lecture series and earlier programs for kids. We have a library research library that will be available to the public when it's finished. Besides the Morongo, there's the Yohaviatum. Yeah, they're in Highland. That's near San Bernardino. And they have linguists with whom I've worked for 20 years or so. And we have been meeting on a regular, once a week, and fine dictionary has taken shape, and it's in finishing stages.
Mark, what drew you to the center, and how has your relationship with Ernest and the Serrano language evolved since you got involved?
At first, I was learning the Cahuilla language. I bought a book that teaches the Cahuilla language, but one thing that was troubling for me was I had no idea what the language sounded like. So it was really kind of hard to connect with it in a language I've never heard and nor know what it sounds like. And I remember looking in Google and looking at the different languages around the area, and Serrano was one of them. And that's when I met Ernest, and that was November of 2017. And I remember he taught me a few words that day, and I kind of, asked if, would you mind meeting again? And as we would meet, of course, I was getting to know him as a person, but also I was able to hear the language from a speaker who heard the language. It was a little bit more personal on that level. And, fast forward to now, it's nice to be able to speak with them.
I can imagine how difficult it is to learn a language that you've never witnessed before, right? You've never heard a word uttered from that language before. What were your first words?
It was like the basics, like, you know, if you would learn like French or Italian, you know, you start with hi, how are you, what's your name?
Which is, how do you say that?
So hi to one person, because they distinguish between one person and multiple people. So if I was saying hi to you, I would say huminut. But if I'm saying hi to you and Ernest, I would say humintumsh.
Mark, in a recent op-ed for the LA Times, you talk about some of the other efforts to preserve indigenous languages across California. A lot of Native Americans don't have a very strong connection to their tribal or indigenous background. I mean, when you talk about growing up in a city, going to regular public schools, speaking English, how important is the language itself as a way to access and to continue to connect to that heritage?
Well, one thing that helped me connect to just the surrounding areas, because this is where Serrano was spoken, was especially when I would learn about place names or some of the history, it put everything into context and it put everything in perspective. So an example, I think of Yucaipa, which is a city out that way towards Redlands, and that's actually a Serrano word, and it gives me context because it translates to something like the mountain wilderness. That's
what Yucaipa means?
Yeah, it's a amalgamation of the two words yupa and kaich. So yupa is like the wild, and kaich is a mountain. So it kind of mixed those two words together. Yeah, so it's like, it might not look like that now, but it gives you a peek into what it did look like to them.
For the people interested, of course, the youngsters on the reservation, well, living anywhere in the country, the language is what pulls them in a mysterious way, and I think that has to do with our belief that what the elders would tell us: never forget your language. You know, you have to learn all sorts of new things in this world, the new way, as we used to say. But never forget learn your language. Never forget it, because if you do, you'll be lost. Your people will be lost and wondering who you were, and etc. You know, and remember your language and pass it on to your kids.
Ernest Siva is co-founder of the Dorothy Ramone Learning Center, along with his wife, and Mark Araujo-Levinson, a language preservation specialist with the Morongo Cultural Heritage Department. How do you say thank you, Ernest?
Akupa'ai.
Akupa'ai. Is that right?
A'ai.
A'ai.
Good.
A'ai.
A'ai means good also.
Thank you so much to you both. Mark, thank you.
Akupa'ai.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, animal rights activists want LA developers to reflect on how dangerous high-rise